Hi, everyone. It's your favorite MLB newsbreaker, Bob Nightingale, and you're listening to the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. Enjoy the show, and thank God for Jeffrey Springs.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. I am your host, Zang, and I am joined by our first guest co-host in pod history, Jonathan, a.k.a. JMC. Jay, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. How you doing, man?
What I do, man. It's good to be here. Very exciting. Long-time listener.
I know. It's fantastic to have you on. I'm glad we get to, bring on some folks while Ace is out of town for a little bit. Should be an interesting show. I know we had a variety of matchups, and including somewhere I'm excited to hear your perspective on how things went as, somebody involved in some of these and just to, get a new voice in and mix things up. So we'll start off with the matchup minute with the North Pole Natty Bows versus the Portland Pioneers. Portland Pioneers took on the Natty Bows, both teams entering the week 7-4 with a chance to knock their opponent below them in the standings. Portland opened the week up with a 20-point lead thanks to a trio of batters benefiting from the Bandbox Las Vegas Stadium. Shea Langoliers had 10, while teammates Bryce Terang and Jackson Churio had 14 and 9. The Natty Bows' Josh Naylor outscored all three in his 4 RBI day, racking up 16 points, but a 3 earned run blown save from Keaton Wynn cost the North Pole 11 points in the negative. Tuesday saw the Pioneers extend their lead to 59 off the back of Dylan Cease's 33-point performance in his first start back from injury. Both teams exploded for 100-plus point days on Wednesday, 112 for the Natty Bows and 126 for the Pioneers. The North Pole got 14 from Byron Buxton and 22 from Brady Singer, along with 27 from Shohei Ohtani. 12 points left on the bench from Alec Boehm and a mediocre 17-point day from Chris Sale were easily forgettable blemishes on the strong day for the North Pole. Portland's scoring was less spread out, as Matt Chapman continued his hot streak, tallying 23 points against the Nationals, and Drew Rasmussen diced the Red Sox to pieces, K-ing 13 over 7 innings and racking up an impressive 44 points. The Natty Bows outscored Portland 73-48 to close the distance to just 48 points on Wednesday. And the North Pole got 12 from Shohei, 13 from Corey Seager, while Devin Williams 11 was the high mark for any Pioneers player on the day. Friday saw the second day of the matchup in which both teams scored over 100 points. For the Natty Bows, it was 119 on a 4-start day, thanks to 10 from Josh Naylor, 15 from Wilson Contreras, and 17 from Byron Buxton, along with 20 from Anthony Kay and 23 from Joe Ryan. But the Pioneers' 173-point day really stole the show, pushing them to a 100-point lead over the North Pole. Portland's standouts included 19 from Wilyer Abreu, 25 from Bo Bichette, and matching 30-plus starts from Sonny Gray and Sandy Alcantara, who scored 31 and 32 points respectively. Portland all but sealed their victory on Saturday, scoring 97 points while taking a 144-point lead over the North Pole. Bubba Chandler scored 20 but was outdone by Portland Pioneers center fielder Jackson Churio, who racked up 21 points in a 2-home run day. The Natty Bows got 10 from Christian Walker and 12 from Shohei Ohtani on the hitting side. Pioneers would indeed complete their wire-to-wire victory, scoring 46 to take this crucial matchup over the Natty Bows, 625-469.
Yeah, this was definitely a crazy performance from Portland. Your guys definitely stepped up, especially on offense. Some of your key guys, your stars, Churio, Bichette, huge, both week-long performances, also great individual performances with those 2 home run days towards the end of the week. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Drew Rasmussen. What a time he had. Not going to say that it didn't make me a little happy.
The whole time I was watching that game, I was just hitting the Alonzo Mourning gif where I was like, oh, he's striking. Oh, fantasy points, Whole game, I was feeling like that.
Yeah, but he's been on a bit of a heater, too. I feel like the past couple games he's been unbelievable, like 40-plus points, I believe I remember seeing. So he's been great.
2 straight over 40. He's been doing great. And, for the Pioneers, as you mentioned, like second straight strong week, two straight weeks over 600. It definitely feels like the team is kind of rounding into form as I hoped they would. So,
Yeah, and I think that was a key differentiator here. The Portland's pitching definitely stepped up big time, while Bo's pitching unfortunately floundered a little bit. A couple guys who needed to step up unfortunately didn't. Bradish had a rough time. Kelly Lee. Um, Unfortunately, that can be the big differentiator here, and unfortunately, guys like Wynn who got negatives kind of widen the gap a bit more.
Yeah, sunk the ship. Yeah, 310 on the pitching side for Portland, 180 for the Natty Bows. So,
Yeah, that'll do it for you.
that'll spread out the difference quite a bit there. And yeah, overall, I'm just always amazed by what an extra little advantage Shohei is, and I get an extra peek into it as I look through it. I'm kind of going across, comparing things, and then I see the 12 points in a pitcher slot. I'm like, oh, not a great day from a pitcher. And then I remember that's 12 points from a batter who hit a home run and stole 2 bases.
Yeah, you're like, I swear I saw this guy there yesterday.
Yeah. He really is a cheat code, and obviously very helpful for the Bows. And yeah, helpful in the matchup here to, when you're facing someone with the same record and kind of able to push someone down while pulling yourself up, definitely helpful for my place in the standings. I know there were 2 members on the sort of superlatives list, best batters and potent pitchers, both for the Pioneers. Did you want to read those out?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rasmussen, as we discussed before, 44 points. That puts him at the number 5 pitcher for the week, and in 1 start as well. So pretty solid. And then Jackson Churio, man, oh man, what a great week for him. Dropping 59 points as the number 1 batter on the week. Total of 5 home runs, 10 RBIs over the course of the week.
Crazy.
Can't complain. Can you?
Complain. I think he's still only 22, 23, something like that. He's young. I'm really happy to have that guy as a Pioneer for the next decade.
Oh, most definitely.
Looking forward to that. All right, sliding down to our second matchup, we have the Arizona Asphalt, who took on the Joinville-friendly Capybaras. Looking to hold their place at the top of the standings, the 8-3 Arizona Asphalt took on the Joinville-friendly Capybaras, who had just officially waved the white flag on the season and announced their plans to sell at the deadline. It was a quiet Monday for both teams as Arizona took the lead, scoring 114 points, while Joinville scored only 1. On Tuesday, however, both teams erupted, scoring over 100 points each. Arizona scored 107 off the back of 4 hitters, Luis Garcia with 10, Miguel Vargas and Andy Pajes with 11, and Randy Arozarena with 15, while Freddie Peralta disappointed with only 4 points in his start against the Cardinals. Joinville's Logan Gilbert tallied 26, and the white-hot Wade Meckler scored 12 to help the Capybaras on their way to a 108-point day. Joinville took the lead on Wednesday, scoring 83 points, 10 from Trout and Curtis Mead, and 37 from Reed Detmers. However, a net 22 points lost, a minus 11 from Ryan Nelson, and 11 points left on the bench in Owen Casey, kept the Asphalt within striking distance to end the day. The Capybaras extended their lead to 64 as they outscored the Asphalt 77-28. Joinville scored 65 and held their lead on Friday despite Trey Savage only scoring 6 points in his start, and an onslaught from Arizona, who saw Jacob Mizorowski score 62 points in his complete game shutout, and Liam Hicks tally 16 from the catcher position. Arizona exploded past the Capybaras on Saturday, scoring 155 points, giving them a 28-point lead over Joinville entering the final day. Max Muncy had 22, Michael Soroka had 28, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto had 44 in his perfect game bid. The Capybaras had a strong day of their own, getting 10 points each from Padres' Gavin Stone and Jackson Merrill, and 20 from Ivan Herrera. Despite an 88-point Sunday that saw the Capybaras' Steven Kolek score 35, Joinville would narrowly lose the matchup to the Arizona Asphalt 545 to 523 as the league leaders get back in the win column.
Yeah, and they did so with a pair of unbelievable starts towards the end of the week. You start off with whatever the hell Jacob Mizorowski did on Friday. Was it the lowest amount of, no, definitely not lowest amount of pitches in a Maddox, but he had a Maddox.
Most Ks in a Maddox
strikeouts.
for sure.
There we go. Yeah. And that was unbelievable.
While blowing
to
105.
follow back and watch the highlights.
Yeah.
And then you're happy with that. You're chilling, and then all of a sudden, Yoshinobu Yamamoto the next day he's almost replicating something similar in his own right, not with the strikeouts, but a strong, deep performance into the ninth. Um, so you can't ask much better from your two aces to close out that week for you. So that's pretty solid. Um, yeah, going through for the rest of the week, though, the bats definitely stepped up just as much. Um, he had more home runs, more RBIs from his guys than Hideki's, unfortunately, for the latter. Um, but just a good all around week for him. He acquired Gallon during the week. He had a solid quality start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Hicks from the catcher position, he's been pretty solid too.
Waiver pickup.
Yeah, pretty nice.
I think he'll
And
be on
then,
our end of year voting for best pickup. I have to guess. He's been incredible.
yeah, especially when you consider the position.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely a place in need for a lot of teams, and he's stepped up big time. Uh, and I couldn't help looking through as I got to Sunday. Jeffrey Springs, I realized he had two starts in Las Vegas this week. So while we might be thanking God for Jeffrey Springs, I'm sure he's not thanking God for Las Vegas because he kind of got shelled back to back.
You might not be looking forward to the move. He'll stay in Sacramento. Thank you very much. That is,
Yeah.
yeah.
But on Hideki's side, it is kind of tough, especially when it close matchups. You have to nitpick a lot of stuff, and you see that start that Ryan Nelson had, and of course the fact that it was Casey who did it to him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he wasn't too happy about that. And it really does feel like, sometimes talking with Hideki, that whenever he starts Casey, a lot of mid, a lot of strikeouts. But, as soon as he's on that bench, boom, he hits 11, hits a home run off his pitcher. And so it's like, all right, it's time. Put him right back in.
Yeah.
And then back to zero. So
Right back.
it's like, man, what can I do?
With those real three true outcome guys, they're kind of tricky where you almost have to just like take the losses and play them like the whole season and know it'll end up positive. That's kind of where I am with Eugenio Suarez, where I'm like, okay, I know if I just leave him in the lineup, there will be the negative days. There will be the days where he has like, 0.1 points. But like if I leave him in enough, he'll end the season with 450 because I know he'll hit those home runs at some point. And I feel like Casey is that a little bit, but boy, I don't know if anyone has, shown up with the like 8, 9, 11 points as much on the bench as Casey has this season for the Capybaras there.
Yeah, it's tough.
Pretty
All
tough.
right, and then I guess going through to looking over our list here, Hideki did have Stephen Kolek, good performance, 48 points on the week, putting him as the number 3 starter. And then Jacob Mizorowski, who else, 62 points as the number 2 pitcher, and in only one start. Just crazy to think about.
Insanity.
And then this was also the narrowest victory for Ace. So congratulations to Arizona. And unfortunately, most points in a loss for Hideki and Joinville. So definitely a tough spot there. But a good performance overall from the team. It was just unfortunate given the matchup that he couldn't pull through.
Tough matchup, exactly. And I know, obviously the Capybaras have had some low-scoring weeks. And then, of course, the one when they, almost hit 530, they end up matched up with a team that kind of just outscores them. And that is one of the reasons weekly matchups are so fun. I always, obviously Roto has a little bit of that weekly element, but this is part of the reason I kind of love like true weekly matchups because it really does come up to chance a little bit, which I tend to think is fun. But yeah, tough break for the Capybaras, although for a team that's kind of announced that they're, selling on the season and maybe hoping for a better draft pick, maybe a loss isn't the worst thing in the world for them.
Yeah, definitely. And at least you got the points to make yourself feel good.
Yeah,
Going into next year.
up the point total a little bit, so you can believe in next season. Matchup number 3 is the Bronx Bandoleros versus the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes.
Whoa. We sure we have to do this one?
Unfortunately, this is the worst part of podcasting, my friend. You gotta, yeah. When you get to this one, you can just, go on the podcast app, do 3 times speed, zoom right through it, and then, we'll be able to skip right by it. But entering the week with inverse records, we had the 4-7 Bandoleros and the 7-4 Rabid Coyotes. The Bandoleros, the Bronx took a 41-point lead on Monday off the back of Goldschmidt's 11 and Jake Bauer's 12, along with William Contreras' 15. Starting pitcher Will Warren disappointed slightly with only 13 points in an outing in which he didn't complete the 4th inning. The Bandoleros extended their lead thanks to 55 points, 22 from Walbert Urania and 17 from Chase Burns, while the Coyotes saw strong days from Gabriel Moreno and Jazz Chisholm, who scored 10 apiece. The Bronx held their 3-day lead despite being outscored by the Coyotes 41-65, and the Bandoleros batters climbed the ladder in their points scored. 11 from Jack Caglione, 12 from Jackson Holiday, 13 from Jordan Walker, and a 24-point start from Carlos Rodon. However, a -17 from Dodgers relief pitcher Kyle Hurt brought down the Bronx score on the day slightly. The Rabid Coyotes got 11 from Jazz Chisholm and 30 from Davis Martin to account for nearly 2/3 of their total points scored on the day. In a disastrous 2-point day for the Bandoleros, let the Coyotes overtake them for a 22-point lead on Keider Montero's 31-point start. Southwest Kansas scored 58 on Friday, pushing their lead over the Bandoleros to 47. The Bronx's scoring was kept in check due to a 0-point start from Jack Leiter and a -5 from Roki Sasaki following 2 great starts. The Rabid Coyotes had some starter problems, of their own, as Spencer Strider was pulled from the game due to injury, meaning he only had 3 innings pitched to offset the 7 earned runs he allowed, leaving him with a -12 on the day. However, Gunnar Henderson and Michael Busch, putting up 12 apiece, saved the Coyotes from losing the day entirely. On Saturday, poor starts from Coyotes Noah Cameron and Trey Gibson opened the door for the Bandoleros to storm back, scoring 79 points on the back of Cam Schlittler's 26 and closing Kansas's lead to just 14. Their late surge, however, would not be enough, as the Rabid Coyotes would outscore the Bandoleros 61-43 on Sunday, squeaking out a win in the low-scoring affair 365-339 and taking their 3rd straight matchup.
Yeah, more luck here for Kansas. Feels like they've been a lot of weeks where they've snuck out some pretty low-scoring wins, and this was another one of them. So he's got the good mojo going. Fewest points in a win on the week for Kansas. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it pains me to say this, Bronx being the low score on the week, only 329, just really rough to go through and see. And honestly, I feel like a lot of it comes down to the pitching on both sides. Just really disappointing efforts from the starters on both ends. A lot of starters taken out early, a lot of starters shelled for a lot of runs. That one day for me with Leiter, Roki, and Weathers with 0, -4, and -6, that was just rough to see, especially when you can see how it's low scoring. You just need one good day. You have 3 solid starters lined up. This is your opportunity, and just can't capitalize. It's rough to look at.
Yeah, feels a little bit about like the AL right now. You know, it's low. Everyone's kind of bad and scuffling, and you want that one push, and at least in my experience, that one push is not happening. So, yeah.
Well, definitely not down there. It's not, but.
No, it's not happening in Boston. But yeah, just, one of those weeks where everything kind of broke in the wrong direction. And Oki, congrats on your win. I do have to say that giant elephant yelling "address me" in the room is getting larger and larger. 13th in points scored. Just 4,700, while the Rabid Coyotes are 5th place in the standings. So, look, obviously a team can make it in off of getting the right matchups, but if there is a late season fall off, I think we can continue to look at those total points scored. Just for reference, the team that is 5th place in total points scored has almost 1,000 points more than the Rabid Coyotes have. So they are wildly, overperforming their total points scored. And it'll be interesting. Obviously this is week 12, so we have 9 weeks left. 9 weeks left. So, enough time that, it's not a crazy amount of time, so it certainly could work out for the Coyotes. Sometimes those low-scoring teams just make it through on the right matchups, but definitely something where the noise is continuing to get a little louder as they slip lower and lower down those points-scored standings.
Yeah, and for the reference, we hope this doesn't happen. But
absolutely,
there's a lot to hang his hat on. A lot of his batters are doing well. I think maybe at the deadline, as teams are starting to sell, the opportunity to pick up a couple good, reliable starters will put them in a good spot going into it. And from there, anyone's game.
Definitely. And, I think a lot of the credit goes to, I've complimented so much Oki's work on the waiver wire this season. And I think some of that comes from he's picking up guys, to start the week and midweek who are helping him win those matchups specifically. It's not just having a roster of guys you know are going to churn in the points you want. He's playing the game. So yeah, in some ways I do very much mean that as credit to Oki, who has played a very good game this season. And as James, he said, obviously we hope that doesn't happen. Matchup number 4 is the Seoul Sovereigns versus the Arctic Real Survivors. Seoul opened their crucial matchup against the Real Survivors with a 5-point lead, thanks to Yandy Diaz's 11 points. The Arctic got 10 of their 31 points from Ernie Clement's 10-point performance off of a homer. The matchup stayed close on Tuesday as the Sovereigns held their lead by just 2 points. Nick Martinez with 25 and Xavier Edwards with 10 stood out for Seoul, but the Real Survivors' day was marked by a different kind of standout. Wilbur Dotel, relief pitcher for the Pirates, surrendered 6 earned runs without recording an out, leading to a shocking minus 22 points on the day. The Sovereigns surrendered their lead on Wednesday, and the Real Survivors scored 126 points, leapfrogging Seoul and taking a 48-point lead in the process. Bryce Harper's 15 and Caleb Durbin's 17 led the way for the Real Survivors bats, while Jesus Luzardo clocked in a strong 24 points to finish off the 100-plus point day. The Sovereigns' scoring came largely from a pair of matching 24-point starts of their own in Shota Imanaga and Peter Lambert. The Real Survivors scored 56 to extend their lead to 80. Juan Soto's 12 points were the only bright spot on the day as Seoul faltered, scoring only 24 thanks to a poor 8-point start from Hunter Dobbins and a disastrous -7 from Mitch Keller. 20 points from Cedon Rafaela helped the Sovereigns close the Arctic's lead to 65, aided again by Wilbur Dotel, who put up his second straight sub-zero performance at -9. A slow Saturday had Seoul score 32 and the Arctic 48 as they pushed their lead to 81 entering the final day of the matchup. Catcher Hunter Goodman's 25 points on Sunday emphatically sealed the victory for the Arctic Real Survivors as they took this critical matchup over the Seoul Sovereigns 493 to 401.
Yeah, and you know what? Going off of that, what a matchup sandwich for Hunter Goodman.
Yeah.
Starts off the week with almost 15 points, and then absolutely stinks for the entire middle of the week. There was one game where he had 2 errors, striking out 3+ times every game, -3, -6, -3. And then that Sunday, though, 25.6, 2 homers. Yeah, that pretty solid showing in spite of that.
Ends with a 29 on the end of the week. So you're like, all right, not so bad.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Yeah, Hunter Goodman. I've messaged Min privately about this. That is, I think, one of my favorite pickups from the offseason. I think, obviously, I think he paid a first to get him. So, it wasn't, nothing. But I think he just grabbed Hunter Goodman at the exact right time before he really established himself as, one of the 5 best hitting catchers in the game. And he's still relatively young and somebody who I think is going to be kind of a staple in that lineup for a while.
Yeah, he's very good and not Coors dependent either.
Yeah.
He can still slug outside of it. Granted, he was in Vegas, but still.
Yeah, but, he's obviously done that on the road as well. And having, 81 games at Coors is always a nice bonus. What do you make of Wilbur Dotel, I have to ask?
What do I make of him? That brother stinks. Oh, my goodness. I haven't watched him pitch. I didn't see what happened, but yeah, that is not good in the slightest.
Minus 31 on the week.
Yeah, that's a whole great pitching start, but in the opposite direction. So you imagine in a closer week, that could have really bit him in the ass. But
yeah, I think
thankfully it wasn't the case.
Min is very grateful he won this matchup because, as you said, 31 points could easily flip a match. It's funny. I was looking over it. I was like, oh my God, how was he not dropped immediately after this minus 22? And
I said the same thing. I'm like,
yeah, you go into his starts and he had, let's see, of his last 5 performances before that, he had 4 of them in which he pitched between 3 and 4 innings, and had points in the teens, all as a relief pitcher. So he's kind of that interesting, long relief arm. So I definitely get what Min is going for there. And I think, frankly, if I had to be honest, I think he's smart holding on and hoping the ship will right. Although I'm guessing he probably gets one more minus before, he's kicked to the curb.
Yeah, he's hanging on by the slimmest of strings.
Yeah, one more, 3 strikes, and then you're out. But yeah, definitely lucky for him. And it's interesting. Last week, speaking of total points scored, I was kind of dogging on the Sovereigns a little bit. They actually have been slowly climbing the ladder there. And they do lose their first game in, I believe, 5 weeks. They were on a winning a 5-game winning streak before this, and are still obviously in a great position, still in the playoffs and everything. But it's nice to see them starting to, kind of climb the ladder in terms of those total points scored. And their batter showed out pretty well, too. Cedon has been awesome this year. Soto had 38 on the week. 203 total scored for the batters. And honestly, I would say that the pitching just kind of faltered, frankly, in terms of the kind of consistent guys you expect. With Mitch Keller turning in like a -7, he's usually good for a solid like 20 to 30 on the week, whether it's through 1 or 2 starts, he kind of just gets it done. And so, having those consistent guys not quite show out in the way you want, I think is kind of the story of the week there.
Yeah, same thing with McLean too. A little bit disappointing given what you expect from him, but it happens.
It happens.
It was good to see Imanaga finally have a good start. It feels like he's been kind of iffy for a while.
He was scuffling. I think he started very well, and then, like you said, scuffled a little bit. So definitely good to see him bouncing back a bit.
Yeah, like you said, both teams are in a good spot moving forward. Min getting back in the swing of things, going for his playoff push. But it was interesting, I guess, behind the scenes, seeing the different directions the teams are going. Behind the scenes, where you have Pasquantino with his hammy injury going down, Grisham hamstring injury going down, Stanton, God knows what he did, freaking shook his leg coming out the shower. He's back down. And then on the flip side, a lot of stuff still going well for Seoul behind the scenes. Cole Carrig, never heard of him before, but he's come up and he's having a good start, so that could be a pretty good boon to Seoul's lineup. And then something I saw was that Brewers prospect, was it Luis Lara, center fielder? He got an extension, a really big extension. He hasn't played a lick of Major League Ball, so a good sign that he could come up in the summer and be a good producer for them. So pretty exciting stuff behind the scenes for him.
Yeah, good stuff. And Milwaukee is one of those teams where, like, when they give a young guy the bag, you're like, okay, he's about to be a stud. Like, that's a name everyone's about to know. So
yeah, keep an eye out. Something's coming.
That's exciting. Yeah, exciting stuff for the Sovereigns there. And I know Min is definitely thankful he has Harper to fill in at first base, obviously. But yeah, that Pasquantino injury is a big one. Obviously, he hasn't had, I think, the full season we were hoping or expecting out of him. But, still 241 points on the year, which is like, upper third, I would say, for batters. And I think that injury is definitely to be felt. So hopefully he gets back from that hamate sooner rather than later. And as I said, thankfully he still has Bryce Harper to fill in at first base.
For sure. And to wrap things up, just good performance by Min this week. Great balanced offense. The pen really stepped up. So I'm sure he's very happy heading into next week.
Yeah, definitely. Looking to make his way back over 500. Matchup number 5, the St. Petersburg Tropopologists versus the Sault Ste. Marie Locks. Entering the week on a 4-game losing streak, the Tropopologists look to get off the schneid against the struggling Locks. St. Petersburg opened the week with the lead, scoring 47 on Monday, thanks in large part to Emerson Hancock's 19-point start. Batter Andrew Vaughn matched that line, however, for the Locks, taking advantage of the Las Vegas ballpark and scoring 19 of his own. Sault Ste. Marie exploded for 118 points on Tuesday, vaulting them over the Tropopologists and giving them an 8-point lead. Dustin May showed out with an impressive 32-point start, but Tigers catcher Dylan Dingler's 23 points off a 2-home-run game was the icing on the cake for Sault Ste. Marie. St. Petersburg put up an impressive 94 points of their own, getting 15 from Otto Lopez and 23 from Paul Skeens. The Locks scored 91 on Wednesday to push their lead on the Tropopologists to 71. Spencer Horwitz and TJ Rumfield each provided 10 for the Locks, with Foster Griffin adding another 24 to the total. St. Petersburg's underwhelming 28 points on the day would have nearly doubled had bench blunder Brandon Sproat and his 23 points not been left on the bench. To be completely fair to Prius, this was a Vegas start, and I absolutely would have sat him, and I think the other 12 of you also would have sat him. So I do want to be very fair to Prius here. That was probably a smart sit, but it is the way. Colt Keith's 14 points from the Locks and Seiya Suzuki's 12 for St. Pete were the only standouts for either team on Thursday, as the Tropopologists closed their gap ever so slightly, lowering Sault Ste. Marie's lead to 59. St. Petersburg inched things closer again as they scored 53 to Sault Ste. Marie's 20, leaving the Locks with just a 26-point lead to end the day. And on Saturday, they would finally retake the lead they had surrendered on Tuesday, scoring 96 points to overtake the Locks by just a single point. Carter Jensen had 11, and Martin Make or Break My Week Perez had 22. Blaze Jordan kept things close for the Locks, racking up 16 in his major league debut with a home run. Entering the final day of play, just a point apart, both teams would need clean days and strong performances out of their stars. The Locks got a solid 19 from Taj Bradley and 17 from TJ Rumfield, as he enjoyed the A's position player pitching in Vegas. The Tropopologists, however, were not so lucky. Paul Skeens turned in a strong 24 points, but -6 from Emerson Hancock against the Nationals, and Sam Bachman's disastrous -15 sunk the St. Petersburg Tropopologists' chance at stealing away a win. The Sault Ste. Marie Locks finally break their 10-game losing streak, defeating St. Petersburg 441 to 408, and handing the title of the longest drought over to their opponent.
Yeah, big congrats to KJ and Sault Ste. Marie. Yep. Applause to them.
Glad to see it. Yeah, we made it.
And it was a good, solid win. Honestly, I feel like the past couple weeks that I've been looking at them, they've put up good point totals. Feels like the team's in a much better direction now that they kind of have an identity, bringing in players that KJ likes and wants on the roster, kind of filling it out according to his vision.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been performing well, just unfortunately not getting the results that he's been looking for. But definitely a good, solid win against, the record might not show it, but a very good team in the Tropopologists.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of good things going on offensively. Rumfield, he's back, returning to more consistency after a couple struggles in the past couple weeks. And, not just being consistent, but he went off. He had a very good week, 52 points. And that was the number 5 hitter on the week.
Yeah.
So good performance there. And then something that I wanted to bring up was, well, I guess this is something that I think maybe we'll talk about later, because I'm assuming that was this week. Was this week the week that he acquired Blaze Jordan for?
Yes, it
Jordan?
was. That was this week.
Yeah, so, I guess maybe lending a little bit of input a bit early, but I think when I first saw that, maybe because personally I was a bit high on Logan Henderson, when KJ made that trade for Duran, I wasn't big on it. I thought that Logan Henderson really fit what I thought was his vision of a young core, a good pitcher that could develop and be a really strong contributor, if not this season, and definitely next season going forward. And I definitely didn't see that with Duran, especially how he's performed this season. And then now that he was flipped for Jimenez and Blaze Jordan, granted, I don't know too much about Blaze Jordan, I just personally wasn't thrilled with that series of moves. But, clearly KJ saw something he really liked in Blaze Jordan, that he wanted to take that chance on him as a prospect. And he definitely stepped up. Major league debut, he went off. He's having really good competitive at-bats for a really young, really driven St. Louis team.
Yeah.
And that's definitely really exciting to back when you have one of your guys that you believe in to that extent and he starts producing. So that's definitely exciting for KJ. But overall, his whole team did very well. Completely outslugged St. Petersburg. More home runs, a lot more total bases, and better pitching and less innings as well. So just all around, very strong performance for him.
Yeah, definitely. Blaze Jordan, I think it was some prospect showcase. He kind of became famous. I think he hit like a 500-foot home run in, obviously it was like a metal bat in some prospect showcase as a teenager. And how does his name? The guy was a former Red Sox prospect, came over in the Steven Matz trade last year to St. Louis. And on it, like, as somebody, I really liked him in the Red Sox system. I love that he's getting his run. And I similarly to you, was a little skeptical on the initial trade, getting rid of Logan Henderson there. And I have my problems with Duran, as you can imagine, having to watch him every day. But I do think he ended up, it's sort of you got to zoom out a little bit to look at the whole picture. And maybe it wasn't about getting Duran, but getting an asset in Duran that could be flipped then. And, Jimenez is a guy who has versatility for second base and shortstop. And, we know puts up good at bats. He's there every day putting in, the shift, which is something KJ likes. And he gets a young guy in Blaze Jordan. And it does seem like, the Cardinals kind of have a little bit of their devil magic back. And so, maybe getting a young guy like this on the upswing before, I wouldn't guess that Jordan will turn into like a star, but he could easily be, like a top 15-ish, first baseman in the game. And that's such a valuable asset to have. So being able to, I think KJ obviously has done a lot of trading and it feels like, as you said, he's getting a little bit more singular of a vision and starting to kind of build the team exactly how he wants to have it. And like you said, he's put up some good weeks. I don't know if I've ever seen a team have this much bad luck. I mean, he had it was like a 7-point loss, and then obviously there was the 0.2. Like he has just had some really bad luck. So, not that I think this would be a playoff team, but those are just 2 really close weeks. If those flip, all of a sudden he's in. I don't have the standings in front of me, but probably.
Right next to me,
10th place or 11th. Yeah, so like, I don't know that he's feeling great, but like feel a little bit better. So I think there is definitely hope for the Locks moving forward, and it'll be pretty fun. I think maybe at the start of next season we'll have to go back and look at what his roster looked like at the beginning of this season. And I don't know if the over-under is like 3 of the same players, but
I might take the under on that one. And it might be the 3 Tigers, and that's all you got.
Yeah, speaking of Tigers, Dylan Dingler, man, he has just kept putting it in. 30 points on the week. Yeah, that 23-point day. He's really been slugging and doing a nice job for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Very nice. Our second to last matchup is the Valley Gift Lords versus the Cuyahoga Black Panthers. No team in the league benefited more from the Athletics Las Vegas series than the Valley Gift Lords, as you'll hear in a moment. They started their week with an atomic blast, scoring 147 points in the opening frame. Although Kyle Harrison surrendered an unsightly -15, a pair of 20-plus point days from Nick Kurtz and Tyler Soderstrom more than made up for it. Logan Webb's 36 points were the cherry on top of the Gift Lords' dominant day. The Valley extended their lead to 136 points off the back of their 66-point Tuesday. 10 points from Nick Kurtz, 11 from Tyler Soderstrom, and 13 from Bryce Eldridge pushed the point total on the bat side, but a -3 from starting pitcher Kai Wei Teng and -12 from Yohan Duran sandbagged the Gift Lords' day slightly. The Valley jumped back into the 100s, scoring 121 to take a 168-point lead over the Black Panthers. This explosion of points came mostly from the arms this time around, with Andre Palante scoring 25 and Brandon Young 36. The Gift Lords got a little taste of their own medicine as the Athletics tagged Chad Patrick for 3 earned runs without him recording an out, leading to a -16 on the day. And Cuyahoga got 10 from now second baseman Fernando Tatis Jr. off his second home run of the season. The Valley scored just 6 on Thursday, but with only an additional 20 points of their own for Cuyahoga, the Gift Lords' lead remained at a comfortable 148 entering the weekend series. The Black Panthers scored 66 on Friday thanks to 13 from Cody Clemens and 36 from former Gift Lord Bryce Miller, while the Valley scored 68 to keep the score roughly the same. Cuyahoga came back with a strong 94-point Saturday, 13 from Pete Alonso and 33 from Kevin Gosman. And while the Gift Lords' second baseman Zach Galoff scored a solid 12, Chad Patrick surrendered -8 on the day, keeping the Valley to only 57 total points. However, the Gift Lords would emphatically close out their wire-to-wire victory with a 216-point Sunday. 30 from Kyle Harrison, 39 from Logan Webb, 10 from Chase Mydroth, 11 from Colson Montgomery, 13 from both Keibert Ruiz and Tyler Soderstrom, and 15 from James Wood. In the end, the Valley Gift Lords came just 18 points shy of the fabled 700-point week as they blew out the Cuyahoga Black Panthers 682 to 418.
Yeah, just all around dominant performance from the Valley.
Yeah.
Just insane scoreline to look at. One of the best we've seen in league history. And you know what? A lot of it comes down to that A's Las Vegas field. We've talked about it all season where, Al's team's got a lot of guys from the A's.
Mm-hmm.
And, people kind of curious with the elevation in Las Vegas, how the ball's going to fly there. Yeah, it flew. It definitely flew. I think that first day was statement enough where Kurtz had 2 home runs, Soderstrom had 2 home runs. I think Galoff hit a home run. The ball was flying.
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool seeing Bruce Buffer introduce the teams at the beginning. That was pretty sick.
Yeah.
That had a nice aura to it. But yeah, very strong. Eldridge as well. He had a youngest walk-off grand slam, I think, in MLB history.
Yeah.
That was a really sick moment midweek.
I think one of only I think I saw this on Twitter. It was one of 3 walk-off grand slams when the team was down 3. So a go-ahead walk-off grand slam. I think there have only been 3 in history, and that was one of them. Yeah, we joke around in the backyard playing wiffle ball, exactly that, and he, just did it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%, and very cool. And he's been I feel as a prospect, I feel kind of following the Giants a little bit, where he's a very big power guy, a huge power hit tool, maybe kind of questionable. But I feel from the things I saw this week, he was making very good contact with balls, willing to put it the other way down the line, good at bats. So it's really good to see if he turns into a well-rounded hitter.
Yeah.
He's going to be a force in this league, for no question.
No, you're exactly right. He's developed a lot as a hitter. My sister obviously gives me all the Giants tea, and he struggled with playing time a lot earlier in the season. They kind of called him up, but then were only DHing him on certain days, and it does look like he's kind of fully cemented himself into that lineup, which is great because I think he fits that ballpark great and just big slugger like that. I obviously am a big Bryce Eldridge fan. I drafted him in the 29th round in our startup draft. Took a guy like Walker Jenkins for me to trade him away, but it's really cool to see him, exploding there. And often, always, nice to see as well, obviously with Al Martinet being a Giants fan, to have his hometown guy go off like that.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, it's hard to pick out anything that really went wrong outside of what was it, Chud Patrick?
Yeah.
and then his pen. Every time I see it, I'm like, oh my goodness, just so good, so stacked, so talented. I'm jealous.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Jacob Wilson came back as well, so everything definitely coming together for the Valley.
Good to see there. Yeah, definitely. It'll be. I'm interested to see what things look like as they go back to Sacramento, and then I'm fascinated for what are they moving in 2029 to the Las Vegas Stadium? That's when the plan is. Can't remember.
2 years, so something like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I guess 2028. It'll be fascinating to see what that looks like. Obviously, I think it's supposed to be a closed-in stadium, so it won't have quite the same wind effect, but the elevation and obviously the dry air out there. I do have to say, scoring is fun. I kind of love the idea of an AL Coors, but I from a fantasy perspective, I'm very interested to see what Al Martinet's team looks like when we get to that point. This team obviously had a bunch of members of the superlative lists, if you wanted to read those out.
Yeah, I mean, no surprise to anyone. 2, 3, 4 on the batting list, all on his team. Nick Kurtz, 54, Tyler Soderstrom with 53, and the aforementioned Bryce Eldridge with 52. All incredible performances for any one team on their own, let alone together. Gives you a picture of just how this week came to be. And then throw in a little bit of extra on top. Number 1 starting pitcher on the week, Logan Webb, 76 points across 2 starts. He's been very, very good. Yeah.
Logan Webb is a name I'm keeping a really close eye on for the Gift Lords. Obviously, just, when you trade Fernando Tatis for someone, I think that player's performance goes under a microscope. And frankly, I think Logan Webb is the perfect kind of guy. He's got volume. He's very consistent, always turns it out. And pretty much since he's been traded over to the Valley, like he has fully returned back to Logan Webb form. So certainly looks like that trade is working out well for them this week. And God, 18 points from 700. That is just crazy.
Yeah, all-timer for sure.
I went back quickly. I didn't see any. There may be one that was higher, but I didn't see anyone. I quickly scrolled back through scores. So unless anybody finds it, I think that is our highest scoring, single week in league history. Washington State versus the Fenton Melonheads was obviously our headliner matchup for the week. They entered tied in record, looking to firmly establish themselves in a playoff spot. And the Fenton Melonheads opened with a 55. The Washington State winners opened with a 55-point lead. Although Monday featured a disappointing 10 points from Gavin Williams, the winners got yet another stellar outing from Christopher Sanchez, as the Phillies left-hander recorded 35 points on 10 Ks over 7 innings. Nearly half of the Melonheads' 43 points came from Pirate Pasta Spencer Arrighetti in his 20-point start. Washington State pushed their lead to 85 on 23 from Zach Wheeler and 12 from Alec Burleson, and with Braden Montgomery's 10 points on the bench being the only smear on an otherwise strong 82-point day. Nearly half of the Melonheads' 53 points came from Matt Olson, whose 2-home-run game yielded 19 points. Fenton closed the gap slightly with 61, as they scored 59 on Wednesday, thanks to 10 from Kyle Schwarber and 11 from Kyle Stowers. However, a larger day felt like it was in reach, as Michael King scored only 15 and Robbie Ray only 8. The winners scored 53 on Thursday on 10 from Brandon Lowe and Alex Bregman to open up a 118-point lead on the Melonheads, as Fenton ended the day in the negatives at -1. Brian Wu's disappointing -3 for Washington, keeping the matchup from getting completely out of hand. Despite getting 24 from Yordan Alvarez in a 64-point day, the Melonheads slipped further into the hole, as the winners scored 95 from Tanner Bybee's 34 and Alec Burleson's 10, growing their lead to 149. Down to what felt like their last strike 5-start, Fenton came storming back with a 186-point day to cut the winners' lead from nearly 150 to just 6 points. 3 Melonhead starters, Joey Cantillo, Jacob deGrom, and Jose Soriano, each scored over 20, while JT Realmuto turned back the clock, recording 17 of his own. The Melonhead surge, however, would not be enough, as without any Sunday pitcher points, the winners were able to outscore them 60-35, bringing home their 4th straight victory, 474-441.
Yeah, and Washington State felt like they somehow were in the pack for a while. They're back to reasserting themselves as one of the top teams in the league. Yeah, a lot of strong performances throughout. Alec Burleson, he's been on a heater. I think he had like 4 straight days with a home run midweek. Phenomenal performance from him. I think one thing that I was looking at was the Bregman trade with Bybee. Bybee had a very strong performance for him later in the week. His 2 young Mariners, Cole Young, Cole Emerson, both of them are playing very important roles for that Mariners team and doing very well for Washington State as well, which was very good to see. And just strong contributors all around. That Braden Montgomery walk-off, I don't know if you saw the old-fashioned, was it like the throwback day where they had like, the old logos for Chicago.
Bob Costas on the call.
Yeah, well, that part I don't know if we needed personally, but everything else was pretty sick.
Yeah, not a Costas fan?
After that Yankees, what was it, Guardians series?
Yeah, that's right. I remember that one.
I swear it was like he was falling asleep as he was calling these games, and I'm just begging, please, just whether we make it to the next series or we get out, I can't listen to him anymore.
Oh my God, I forgot about the series. That's right. Yeah. My love for Bob Costas is very like nostalgia driven. I just feel like he calls a lot of like classic things, but I do remember that series. Yeah, and people were posting clips, and they were like home runs. And he was like, "Oh, drive to right field," and yeah, he was that was not his best performance, but. Yeah,
it's one of those things where, leave the game before the game leaves you.
Yeah, might be.
And the game, if it hasn't left Bob Costas, it's peeking its head out.
Might be time to sail off and let people live with the good memories. But yeah, the throwback broadcast and the walk-off home run your debut, awesome stuff for Braden Montgomery. Obviously, recent trade shipped over from me for Bo Bichette, so nice to see for the Winners there to get a strong showing from him early on. And I don't want to mythologize Mike too much because I think that's in some ways unfair to him, but it does really feel like just every move he makes works out great. Like Alec Burleson, completely unfamiliar with your game. I thought he was sort of one of those 50th percentile type hitters. He's solid, puts in a good shift at the 338 points on the season. He has been one of the best batters in the league so far. Alex Bregman, who had been struggling, he'd been, shipped off from my team in the offseason, sent to the Coyotes, sent to the Black Panthers from there, and then sent over here. 24 points on the week for the Winners. He just seems to have this knack for getting people at the right time. And, we all joke about the Mike's magic sauce, but it's genuinely, I think, a testament to his ability to kind of read talent and read trends and get people on the upswing, and his record reflects that.
Yeah, I think that's a big point that you mentioned there is kind of knowing what has happened and what's going to happen in regards to certain players and certain teams, favorable matchups coming up, or just predictable rough spots, and being able to buy low and sell high on guys. A lot of credit due to him for the work that he does on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just a tough week for Fendi. When I saw he had no pitcher points on Sunday, I was like, oh, is there a start we could have worked? He got to 12 on Saturday. So, he would have had to cut 3 starts to get there, and it just wasn't quite there. It was one of those weeks where, the starts were kind of just lined up poorly, for the Melonheads. Obviously, as I mentioned, Michael King and Robbie Ray had kind of poor outings. So, maybe that flips things for them a little bit, but kind of just a tough luck week. Overall, though, I think the Melonheads are still in a great spot. Jordan, I know Peach was toying with the idea of potentially trading him before we fix the position requirements, because, obviously he had Jordan and Kyle Schwarber, who were both listed as DH only. Thank goodness for Peach that, Jordan got left field back, because 373 points on the season. He's been one of the best batters, and Matt Olson is just having an unbelievable year. So I'm certainly not concerned at all for the Melonheads. That just, when you go up against a team like the Winners, sometimes that's the way it goes.
Yeah, and definitely scary with that, one day it seems every week that keeps cycling around.
Yeah.
You're in it, it's a good matchup, and then you check the next day and you're like, how many starts does he have?
Here comes 5-start Fenton.
You're bracing yourself for dear life.
Yeah, it is funny how those have lined up, and he just has that one haymaker every week to, so never count him out, even when they're down in a matchup. Let's slide down to the standing segment. James E., do you want to tell us about the standings, where everyone's at?
Yeah, so still up top, Arizona Asphalt sitting at 9-3, sole possession of first place. Moving up, you have I don't know if they moved up, but Washington State, they're on a 4-game win streak, sitting at 8-4 in second place with the same record. Portland Pioneers, with their win this week, they've moved up 3 spots. And then Seoul, even though they lost, they're still in a very good spot, number 4 in the rankings. At 5, Southwest Kansas, with their win over the Bronx, also at 8-4, rounding out that group. And then the last playoff team that we have right now is the North Pole Natty Bows at 7-5. And then right before that playoff line, or right after that playoff line, pardon me, you have Fenton Melonheads with the same record, just a little bit less in the point differential. At 8th and 9th are the Arctic Real Survivors and the Valley Gift Lords, both at 6-6. In 10th place, you got the Cuyahoga Black Panthers at 5-7. In 11th, at 4-8, are the Bronx Bandoleros. At 12th and 13th, with a 3-9 record, are the Joinville Friendly Capybaras and the St. Petersburg Tropopologists. The latter on a 5-game losing streak, as we mentioned before, just in a rough skid. It looks hard to get out of. And then with their first win in a minute, you got the Sault Ste. Marie Locks at 2-10, but unfortunately still last in 14th.
Yeah, down there. Nice to see them get another win, though. They got the first week win, and then, nice to get one every once in a while. I'm curious, do you see St. Petersburg, just as you mentioned, they're obviously kind of in a skid, do you see them maybe trying to flip one of their starters for a bat at some point soon to balance these out a little bit? Obviously, we've talked about what a starter-heavy team they are. Do you think that might help solve some of their scoring issues a little bit, or do you think it's best for them to kind of just stay the course and know that those starters will find their way back to the level we know they're at.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know about fixing the scoring issues. I mean, they do have Hunter Brown who just came back, so that should help a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I do know a lot of teams are in need of starting pitching help, so it could be useful to get a decent haul back. I feel like I'm in the same position as him where it's, weighing the thought of, is it really worth continuing to go for it at this point,
Mm-hmm.
given the hole that we're in? Like, we have this talented team, both of us, and we both feel like we can compete.
Absolutely.
I feel like same thing for Hideki as well. We were all in there last year in the top four teams, and just something's not clicking, something's not working, and sometimes you just gotta see what's out there. I wouldn't rush to sell anything, but if the right opportunity's there, I think it's definitely the potential to get something back and maybe put yourself in a better spot for next year.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of framing it, sort of playing the market, not selling just to sell. But as you said, a lot of people are looking for starting pitching. Probably not trading Skeens or Skubal, but, I do wonder if maybe the Tropopologists flip one of those, their 4 or 5 guy. If you can get back like a couple solid bats or one really great bat, if that might, turn things around a little bit, for some of your guys, if someone's looking for, that I know Ace talked about an upper mid starter, maybe if you got 34, 35-year-old who's, kind of pushing it, nearing their last seasons in the big leagues, if you can get kind of a haul, might set you up for the next couple of years. So I think that's probably the right way to frame it. Obviously you don't want to sell everything, but play in the market a little bit and maybe trying to get something good out of what is, been some unfortunate luck on the season.
Yeah.
That a lot. Bench blunders for the week. We'll start with our bats. Owen Casey, as we mentioned, 11 points on Wednesday for the friendly Capybaras. Alec Boehm had 12 on North Pole's bench also on Wednesday. And George Springer had 14 just after being acquired by the Arizona Asphalt on Friday. For the arms, only 2. J.R. Ritchie with 22 on Friday for Cuyahoga, and Brandon Sproat with 23 on Wednesday for the Tropopologists. Pretty quiet week in the claims corner. We'll start with Monday, which had Alex Lang go for 19 points to the Fenton Melonheads, $7 bids, and a $5 bid from the Sovereigns. The 7 was from the Bandoleros. Those were obviously outdone by that 19. Michael Massey went for 12 to Fenton as well. Jesus Sanchez went for 12 to Sault Ste. Marie. Keibert Ruiz went for $10 to the Valley, and then Hunter Dobbins went for 11 to Seoul. And on Thursday, really only 2 acquisitions of note. Anthony Kay for $10 to North Pole, and Kyle Leahy for $12 also to North Pole. Do you have a favorite claim from this week? One that you think is an especially good pickup?
Well, I feel like Kay was a decent pickup. He did pretty well for North Pole. I don't think anything special, but I think he had like low 20
About
points
20
if I remember
points,
correctly.
yeah.
So solid start. We'll take that.
Yeah.
I think, well, looking at Lange, obviously I bid for him. You saw he was in a good stretch there.
Mm-hmm.
But he had back-to-back L's late this week for Fenton, and so that was kind of a rough one. So I feel like I would say K, but this week I don't think anything really stuck out too much for me.
Yeah.
I will let you know my least favorite claim from this morning, which was, who was it? I think it was Mike who
got him.
snagged my boy, my precious boy,
Yeah.
Royce Lewis from me. For some reason, I just didn't think people were going to look at him, but clearly I was wrong because you bid for him, someone else bid for him.
Yeah,
He ended up going for like 30-something bucks.
I think there were 4 total bids. I actually upped my bid because I was like, you know what? I bet JMC is going to bid pretty high on him, and it still clearly wasn't enough. I was punching air a little bit last night when I saw both him and Elvis Alvarado, who you got, within the last hour. I was like, I'm going to up him. I really want to make sure I get these guys, and I lost out on both. But Keibert Ruiz is one I like. Obviously, former Dodgers top prospect and has not done it, but has been on a real hot streak for Washington as of late. His barrel percentage is absolutely off the chart. I think he doesn't officially qualify yet for Savant, but I was looking at it last night, and it's like, I think well over the 90th percentile for Ruiz there. So obviously, probably not the, the squared out percentage is what it was. and really good whiff and K percentage as well. So it does look like he's kind of fixed some of the holes in his swing. And the Valley have been, a little bit in search for a catcher since their trade this offseason. So I do quite like that Keefer Ruiz claim for them. Let's head to the transaction tracker. We obviously previewed some of these earlier, but we'll run through them quick, and then James C and I will talk over some of the trades in there. Cuyahoga traded Alex Bregman and Tanner Bybee to Washington State for George Kirby and North Pole's 2027 second. Cuyahoga traded Zach Gallen to Arizona for $37 in fab. The Valley traded Sean Burke to Washington State for Jung-Hoo Lee. Joinville traded Jacob Junis and a 2027 fifth for $5 fab, to Washington State for Jordan Lawler. The Arctic Real Survivors traded George Springer, Emil Morales, who is MLB's number 54 prospect, and Portland's 2027 second over to Arizona for Blake Snell. Arizona traded Blaze Jordan and Andres Jimenez to Sault Ste. Marie for Jarren Duran and North Pole's 2028 second. And to close out the list, Sault Ste. Marie traded Spencer Horwitz over to St. Petersburg to reacquire their own 2027 second. Obviously, you mentioned one of the trades earlier, but do you have a most surprising trade, a fleece that stands out to you, anything that really catches your eye here?
Yeah, so we talked a bit earlier about the Blaze Jordan, Jarren Duran trade, as well as the Bregman and Bybee for George Kirby trade. More on the Bregman and Bybee side, but Kirby, great starter, has been a bit iffy recently. I'm not really sure why, because I haven't watched him, but I know coming into the league, he's one of my favorite guys to watch. Just pristine control, his command over the strike zone. So I would like to think that he bounces back, because I respect the way he goes about his business. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see how he does. But overall, I feel like it was a pretty productive week for potentially meaningful trades. Min and the Arctic making a deal for Blake Snell, who's on the IL right now, but has the potential to really contribute down the line if he's making a playoff push. And then, you know what? For my boy Hideki, we have to highlight trade number 4, Jacob Junis, 2027 fifth and $5 fab. I guess that really did it for him. For Jordan Lawler, you know what? Me personally, watching Jordan Lawler, this brother kind of stinks. But the prospect pedigree is there. He's still very highly regarded. So it gives you the idea that he can still, be a very productive player. The chance is still there. And you know what? Hideki definitely sees that as well. And you know what? He brought the prodigal son home. The prodigal son might have a very high whiff rate and might have fielding issues. He went out, he spent all his father's cash. He was selling his body on the street corner for scratches, but he came home. The father welcomed him back with open arms, and hopefully they make good things happen. And first 2 days back, he's had 2 very good days, put up solid point totals. So we'll see what happens with him. But for Hideki's sake, I'm hopefully optimistic.
Yeah. I can fall victim so much to, writing a guy off if they have a bad first year, for even couple years. Like it's just Jordan Walker on your team is such a great reminder of how it so rarely works immediately. And then Kevin McGonigal and JJ Weatherholt come up and remind you that okay, sometimes it does just work out right away. But it might take a couple years for Jordan Lawler, and he's such a toolsy guy, like you said. He's got all the stuff you want to see, but it has not been pretty so far. So I think obviously,
but you know what?
Yeah.
If it works out, it'll be that much more satisfying
exactly
for Hideki.
That'll be, it is so satisfying when you kind of put in the sort of put money in the bank and hold on to him, and then it works out. So yeah, still, I think looking for that position a little bit, played some center field, played some third base. But I do wonder, sometimes those things settling down a little bit can help a ball player settle in. And I do think for him, this is a perfect trade. Jacob Junis is an older relief pitcher. That's not helping a team that's looking towards the future. And so it's not really a loss for Joinville. And you get sort of a solid lottery ticket in a guy like Lawler there. And on a similar vein, I really like the trade for both sides, the George Springer and Blake Snell one. Snell obviously has his injury issues, but we know what he is when he's here. And, one of the things I've noticed about Min's strategy about kind of building a expansion team is he's really looking to trade out some of those middle pieces to acquire some truly high-end talent, and then he's going to kind of try to rebuild that middle. And, he's got a top-end pitcher in Blake Snell. And you look at his pitching staff, I mean, Blake Snell, Max Fried, Jesus Luzardo, Garrett Crochet, Mackenzie Gore, that's pretty fucking solid. I'm not going to lie. And for a team like Ace, who's obviously making a true title push this season, George Springer, who's on the back end of his career, but still putting up good numbers, I think that is a worthwhile gamble to make to give up a guy like Snell. So I actually really like that trade for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then finally, we'll touch on next week's notes. Our first matchup is the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes versus the North Pole Natty Bows. Southwest Kansas at 8-4, North Pole at 7-5. So the Natty Bows there have a chance to pull even in record with Southwest Kansas should they win. Portland at 8-4 takes on the Sault Ste. Marie Locks at 2-10. The Real Survivors at 6-6 take on the Bandoleros at 4-8. Cuyahoga at 5-7 will be taking on the St. Petersburg Tropopologists at 3-9. Fenton Melonheads at 7-5 will be taking on the league leaders Arizona Asphalt at 9-3. Joinville Friendly Capybaras at 3-9 will be taking on the Valley Gift Lords at 6-6. And finally, our headliner for the week, the Soul Sovereigns at 8-4, taking on the Washington State Winners at 8-4. So, I'm always such a big fan of these matchups. When there are two teams near the top of the league, tied in record, it just narrows out that top of the field a little bit more. So that is obviously a very exciting one to keep an eye on between Inten and Mike there. Do you have any other matchups you're keeping, a close eye on that you're especially interested in?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple other matchups like that this week as well. But one that kind of piques my interest will be Ace and Arizona taking on Big Peaches Fenton. I think that, I was looking through to preview some of the matchups, and one thing I was looking at was starts, seeing how some of these guys have a lot of people loaded up on Sunday, which gives you a bit of an advantage. But one interesting thing I saw from Ace upcoming this week is he has 0 starts through Tuesday and only 1 total start before Friday.
Holy cow.
So that really stuck out to me as interesting. So it could potentially set the stage for falling behind early and then a potentially late comeback. And then Fenton, very high-powered team, very solid all around, great offense. I think they can give them a run for their money, and it could lead to an exciting finish down the line. So that's where I'll put my ticket.
Yeah, that should be a fun one to watch. I am interested to see the Real Survivors versus the Bandoleros. I have to say, I've said it on every episode. I just can't quit your team, man. I know they've got it in them. And from Min's perspective as well, this is, I think we're entering kind of critical territory for the 6-6 teams. Where they are 1 game back of being in the group where total points scored kind of determines whether you're in the playoff picture or not. They're 3 games back from the lead, but just 1 game back from that 6-7 sort of group there. 6-7. So I think it's, that's one I'm excited to keep an eye on. Obviously, similarly with the Valley, they've been on a pretty solid push. I think they've won 3 straight now, I want to say. So those are just, we're coming down to the wire where I think, the matchups are really starting to matter. They're really starting to be okay, how will this actually affect my chances at making the playoffs? Not just whether I'm kind of quote unquote in the playoffs or not. An interesting note about the Real Survivors, they are 4th in total points scored. So for them getting into that group where points scored, the tiebreaker kind of decides things, is a pretty solid spot for them. So if obviously Min is able to pull away a win this week, that puts him in a pretty good spot. On the other hand, if you're able to kind of pull him down, that pulling someone down pulls you back up a little bit. So that's the one I'm kind of keeping my eye on throughout the week.
Yeah, and you know what, even if it doesn't pull me up, I'm more than happy to pull Min down. You already know how it is. Also, I feel like I said some things going into the season about Min's team and what I'm going to do to him first time I see him. So I feel more pressure to come through this week and not let that happen.
That's right.
So
I
we'll
had
see.
forgotten about the flag you planted. So that is another reason to keep an eye on this one.
It'll be a little bit awkward, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see. Maybe the team will back you up. You never know. It'll come through. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. It was awesome to have you on. I would be remiss if I didn't say congratulations. Go Knicks, 53 years. Enjoy everything that's going on in the city right now. But yeah, thanks again for joining. It was awesome to have you on.
Yeah, you know what? This was almost just as fun as being in the city at night.
That is very high
well.
praise. So I'm glad to hear that. Almost is the key word there. Yeah. Almost.
Yeah, I won't say how much, but it was a good time. Thanks for having me on, and it was a blast.
Absolutely. Great. Well, thanks again for joining, and we'll look forward to, obviously, I'll talk to you all again next week with another guest co-host. Have a good one, everyone.
Take care.
You know what that makes you, Larry?
Lollygaggers.
Lollygaggers.